the biggest entrepreneur platform on the planet. This is Business Rockstars.
This is Business Rockstars. I'm Brittany Whitney, and my guests today are Josh and Julia Kolar, founders of DriverDOC. Today, we talk about raising capital in an early stage startup, what it's like being a startup in Omaha, and how to navigate being in business with your partner. Hope you enjoy. Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey and what kind of led you to start DriverDOC.
Yeah, so really, there's a big, huge conceptual difference, I think, as I look back at my experience and what I've gotten to see and just this convergence of what's going on in technology with parcel industry, consumer goods and expectations, and then, what still happens today in the freight industry. And so I personally got to see both of those angles at major corporations. And so uniquely, you've got, 5 big players in parcel, and those things, when you change technology that's easy to adapt, they just happen. They have nice closed systems, and just basically put it, they've kind of mastered communication with the driver. They've mastered how to collect documents in real time, how to get real-time data from the driver. Whereas the freight industry has it. 97% of the freight industry has 20 trucks or less fleet sizes. And these guys don't have IT departments. They don't have any way to really connect systems together. So they're living in like silo farms of technology. And so it's really disaggregated, and really there's not a great way to connect them to the supply chain. And so with the supply chain now, a lot of people have that, ease of business, when they purchase things through parcel and, getting, things off Amazon. That has slowly crept in, and now the freight industry is really demanding it, wanting it, but still really being left hungry for it.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where Josh had started his career in parcel, and you just kind of get used to like the instantaneous information and the expectations, and then moved over into rail and trucking, and then kind of come home and say, what is happening here? Why are they so far behind? And as we would talk through that and the frustration, kind of this realization, if UPS and FedEx make a positive change, that's still almost the entire industry. But on the other side, like Josh said, if everything is, many, many small disaggregated companies, it's hard to have this united front of technology transformation. And so that's really kind of the aha moment that was had to say, I see it, and I see that there's a change that needs to be made that can be adapted by the many, many players that make up this industry.
And for those who are watching and they're like, wait, what is DriverDOC? Explain what you guys do.
Yeah, so simply put, it is real-time documents and shipment visibility. So in other words, a driver has an app. They can take pictures of documents, send it to whoever needs it in the supply chain, as well as we can understand through our technology platform where they are and start to capture location data as they go.
And with all the technology available, I think it's hard for some people to believe that there's this massive industry transporting, a large volume and, especially monetarily, large volume of goods across the country that are running on paper documents, that are, sharing information by way of phone call and text, rather than, the way other industries are sharing, through sort of back end systems and GPS coordinates and things like that. There is not a standard today to rely on technology. It's a lot of conversation and a lot of physical paperwork that's going back and forth to share data and to be paid.
I was just gonna say, I can't believe like this doesn't, it didn't exist.
No, and I think to kind of put why we're doing this is right now, thousands of phone calls and emails are going throughout or being made, done, whatever you want to say, throughout the supply chain to ask really 2 questions. Where's that driver? And when's he going to be here still?
Right.
And so when we act and, think through, why do supply chains, when like, you think of the pandemic, right? Where is our toilet paper? I don't know. Because
Right.
it all breaks down, because you have these really, you have 560,000 trucking companies today that can't really share any of that information with the supply chain. And so when things go awry, it resorts to emails, phone calls, and texts, which is really, it's hard to imagine that, but it just also shows, even with all this technology, the freight industry itself is still really archaic, and again relies heavily on paper processes.
So DriverDOC itself, it's an application on Android and iOS, and it relies on GPS tracking that runs in the background to provide that real-time location and an auto-calculated ETA. So that can just be accessed, by the receiving customer, by a dispatcher, that, trucking company, so that they're not wondering and they're not picking up the phone to call. And then if that driver is running late and that freight is going to come behind schedule, they just know that ahead of time.
Right.
They don't have to be frustrated when they realize it's not late, or, have 4 phone calls to say, okay, where are you now? Where are you now? Because they just know. And so when a driver arrives, the portal then prompts that driver to attach necessary paperwork. Whereas, it might be sitting in a cab in a stack, they can take a picture of that, maybe send it via text or email, but that leaves the back office going, was it in an email? Was it in a text? And it's just this aggregation of data. Whereas when they attach it to their load in DriverDOC, you just go to that load, one source for the information for where are they, where are the documents, and all of those things sort of just are centralized and make it very simple and easy.
Definitely something that the market needs.
And I think, the other thing is we've learned, another need within the industry is there's this big delay around cash flow. So as you think about this industry, and 560,000 of these trucking companies, and that's just North America, have 20 truck sizes or less, cash flow is how they stay in business. And what we saw was where cash advances, think of payday loans, that's where this industry has offered help, and it's called factoring. And that really doesn't help in the long term. That's a short-term fix, but they take a lot of money off their invoicing. And so instead of us trying to replicate that, we saw, well, if there's just this delay of 2 to 7 days,
just for paperwork,
just to get it to the back office, and no one solved that really, we will solve that and keep their money in their hands, but give them on a platform that says, hey, I can keep my cash flow just by getting that document to my back office faster, just more liquid, and then essentially get rid of a 2 to 7 day delay in that invoicing process.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to talk about you guys and your journey. So did you have another job while you decided to start DriverDOC? Tell us kind of the nitty gritty entrepreneurial journey.
Josh I mentioned he worked in parcel, and then he worked in rail, and then intermodal, which is this combination of rail and trucking, and then moved that sort of over to a trucking company. So, just kind of flowing through the industry. And then I work full-time in corporate finance. So we were kind of this, double income corporate household. And I mean, to be honest, Josh has this entrepreneurial bug to see issues and solve, and so over and over again in his corporate life, he was seeing an issue and solving it. And this issue kind of grew in his mind, where he said, I see it and I can solve it. And I can try and solve it with an employer, or I can try and solve it. I can do the networking and, scrap it together, and I see it and I want to run with this. So really step one on the entrepreneurial journey is, convince the corporate accountant, conservative wife that would be a good idea. So that's really step one. And, it took a lot of talking, and, since I'm a finance person, I'm like, show me the numbers, what's the market opportunity? And so we both individually did a lot of research to say, what are the products out there? And, what is the opportunity? How many companies are there? What are they already using? Kind of all of those different pieces. And, personally, we are a household of 4. And at the time that we made this change, we had 2 kids in full-time daycare. So we really had to consider, is this a risk that we can and will take as a family?
Right.
But we hit a point where there was just so much positive energy and moving this thing forward, that we just decided, like, let's jump, let's rework our household, and sort of invest our own resources into it, and let's go all in, which it had to be both of us going all in, or it wasn't going to get any traction.
What is it kind of like raising startup capital for you guys? Are you self-funded? Tell me about that journey.
No, you bet. No, I think so. Being here in the Midwest, especially, even like really Midwest in Omaha, Nebraska, yeah, it's definitely I think a difference of versus being traditionally maybe out in Silicon Valley or having just connections to
Right.
other parts in the country. And so one, I saw that as it was a hurdle, but thankfully, again, with our network and with just some of the other people we have connections to, we have found ways. So say is there are angles, there are angels, there are companies that when you can get to them, and really, I mean, you've got to sell the vision, you've got to sell the capability. And so I kind of look at it too as even though I'm in a different area of the country that's less risk adverse and those things, that can't be the excuse why not to start. And so while we knew that was going to be something to think through, we've been lucky. We found local angel investors that are involved in the company. We've got actually a trucking company that's invested in us, and we've got several others that are coming to fruition through the the raising capital process. And so I'd love to say, like, yeah, it is difficult. But again, I think that's part of that entrepreneur journey is you've got to figure it out. That's you have to have money for your runway. You have to have money to bring on a team to build the product. So you just have to figure it out.
And did you guys have, your family, your husband and wife, you have a family. Did you have a fear of failure when you started? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, people who want to start, grow, or fund a business, kind of let that fear of failure get in the way of following their passion and pursuing their dreams. How did you kind of get over that initial fear of failure? Or are you still afraid to fail all the time?
So I'm just going to put it, I think the best way that I can and how I internally think through that and process that is, to me, failure is always an option. I had this started with that, and convinced, as we thought about even starting this, is there's always going to be the ability to succeed, and the ability that if I fail, I'll gain experience. And I kind of look at the failure as the opportunity to learn more and to take that experience to apply it to this company, apply it to, what we do next. But I think I tried to tangibly, protect my mindset and keep my confidence high, is that failure to me has to always be an option. It's then the work I put into it, like talking with other entrepreneurs. So for me, as a first-time entrepreneur coming out of the corporate world for 15 plus years, I just did a lot of research. I did a lot of, just thankfully I had some connections with some big name entrepreneurs here in the Omaha area. And so I just went and had coffee with them. I got to learn, their experience. What should I not do? What should I do? I think then most importantly, I stood up advisors, right? To say, I'm going to fail, but where can I not fail? If I repeat that issue, from their experience or what they've done throughout business, could I get that out of them to really insulate success? While all along, again, just that mindset of failure is always an option, like, and breeding. I think that's kind of the culture mindset and everything we want to have here is, please fail. You're going to learn something. Just don't fail too hard and too long.
Absolutely. Research and networking, especially in those early days, is so key. What is it like running a business, being husband and wife? Do you have rules where we don't talk about business at dinner time, or how do you kind of keep that work-life balance?
Yeah, even just like playing off the previous question as well, fear of failure. I mean, Josh truly is like, yeah, I can always fail and that's fine. And, I'm the opposite. I still am fearful of, like, we've really put ourselves in a vulnerable position. And, I've had to strengthen that muscle a lot. And as we've sort of failed forward, just learn to be more okay with it. And so like, as a husband and wife team, we have to continue to balance each other out in that way, to kind of, maybe I'm more fearful, but I can like, pull Josh kind of back to reality and he can help me dream a little bit. But as a family, we've really, like you said, had to set a lot of boundaries for when we communicate and how we communicate about things.
And I would just echo that. Two things: boundaries and communication. Is if we're vocal, right, and saying, hey, on the communication side, we talk through things, we plan to talk through certain things of the business at specified times, then we protect our family, we protect us from, really having this, be 100% what we do. But then really, I think the boundaries too is just, I have to have others that can help me in other parts of the business. And so that's where I would tell you is I'm learning to think through this as a company, as in a business. I have to invite others in, and I have to have, other help.
Absolutely. What was what is the biggest challenge that you face as your business now is continued to grow?
Yeah, I think so. Right along that kind of that desire to bring people in is balancing control. So my just prior to entrepreneurship, like I always had to solve things. I always had to do a lot of things and really bring tangible results in the corporate world to do decisions. But what I've learned through here is you have to balance, product execution and building a SaaS technology company and the desire to scale. And the only way you can scale a product is with people at this point. And so it's really, knowing that I've got to invite others in, I've got to surround myself with help. And so just delegate, give away that control mindset of, it's got to be done a certain way. I've got to be over all of it, and really, drift from micromanagement to macro management to really achieve, as I view this as a company, as I view it as a brand, perspective.
Absolutely. And obviously a lot of small businesses are hurting right now and times are tough. What advice or words of wisdom do you have for a small business like yourself that is kind of fairly new, to kind of just keep trekking forward and to give them hope?
Pivot. Embrace. Well, embrace change. And I think to that point is, we had a thought and a desire to start with a certain market segment. And when the pandemic hit, because a lot of the smaller trucking companies are drive there, talk to them, show them what you got, close the deal. I couldn't do that. I can get some guys to get on Zoom and, some companies to do that. But I started pivoting towards a different base entirely to say, I think this other group could use the product. And we found a way to then find and grow our customer base. And so I think just plainly is, if failure is an option and you want to stay in business, then you have to decide to pivot. And so having that open mindset.
Yeah, and on that same line, like every closed door can be a good thing. Yeah. And I don't sit at a closed door and sort of wallow that idea and that plan didn't pan out. I mean, literally get up and move, because that next door is opening. And if you sit and keep knocking at a door that's closed, you're going to miss it. And you're going to just sort of, develop self-doubt in the fact that one plan didn't work out. But, the world is full of opportunities. And if you can lift your head and pivot and say, that door's closed, I'm going to trust that was actually protection and that was a good thing, and move on, and not, just see that as my end game. That is advice that we have had to, a lesson we've had to learn, and move quickly. Don't just sit there, move quickly, take the next thing and just brush it off and just keep moving so that you can keep advancing.
And I think just to piggyback on that, right, from that perspective, and I think then when you embrace failure as an option, it's a reminder to ask for help.
For sure.
I think there's that tendency, again, it's like, I can control this, I'm going to do it, ride the ship down, right, as the captain of the business. And it's like, I don't want to do that. And so it's really, being transparent, right? Finding, again, those open doors, but asking for help. That's what I think I've been shocked, is when I've been very transparent with my needs and my dilemmas, I've eventually gotten the help, right? And so I think, again, when you're transparent and you're authentic and you ask for help, doors will close, doors will open, and it's just then run towards the open ones.
For sure.
That's great advice, because it's so easy to kind of get stuck in that mud and to not know when to trek forward or when to stop and pause. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can really learn from that. What was it like or what is it like growing your customer base? What has been the biggest challenge or biggest pain point there?
Yeah, I think honestly is coming in with a thought of what I thought they needed help with, right? And then now just really growing into listening mode.
Yeah.
And so really hearing and saying, hey, I came from a background and an experience of large corporation, but I've decided now to, for all intents and purposes, help the small guy. I've had to be adaptable and to really become relational with, instead of being that prescriptive, you're going to do it this way and now enjoy it, to, okay, I'm getting you to the pain points, I'm feeling it out. And so that's really I think giving us just a better way to know our customer base, to know our user personas, and is actually, and again, as we start to really take our product to the next level, we're building the right product. We're not really, I just say, hell bent on, hey, this is what we know it has to be. It's no, your customer needs this product. And so I just being adaptable with the customer base when they tell you what they need.
So every small business needs a mentor. Tell me, have you kind of found a great mentor, or who has kind of helped you along your journey?
Yes, no, I'd say as mentor, advisors, many people that you can have on your side and just there to help cultivate, where to go next is so hugely important, especially as an early stage business. And so where we found that is, really, our network, but also more so as we thought about how to raise. And what we wanted out of the, raising process was not just strategic capital, but strategic partnerships and mentorships. And so one of our largest investors today, has come from outside Omaha. And, we're very lucky the way that we found him, in really the unique way that we've, went about our strategy raise. And it's been such, a huge help. It's someone that's, raised, millions of dollars himself, has been an entrepreneur, many times over. And so to really have someone that offered help in the form of investment, but really more so a mentor, and being there to think through difficult situations has been, a game changer, as in the way I view, a real mentor. But then as you layer in essentially even to how you find strategic partners.
Absolutely. And if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice before you kind of went on this endeavor and this entrepreneurial journey, what would you tell yourself?
Kind of back to the closed doors, that it's okay for them to close and for it not to go as planned. And then, timing is everything. Sometimes something doesn't seem like it's working out, but it's the right time for us, but it's not the right time for them. So it is okay to revisit, and recognize that timing was the issue, because there were several things that maybe didn't work on the first time, but as we grew as a company, and then as the circumstances changed for that other party, did line up and timing was right. Yeah. So you have to be patient sometimes for things to align to what you were hoping that they would be.
And yeah, just to add to that, it's like you're going to make tons and tons of decisions. Mm-hmm. You have to survive. If you don't make your decisions, that's failure. And so trust your gut. Like, rely on your, the thing that is, giving you that, internal perspective and gut feeling of, it's right, it's wrong, and learning to trust that more. And so I think that's kind of that is flex that muscle of trusting your intuition and, really, being brave enough to move forward that way.
That's great advice, and so necessary, kind of along this wild roller coaster of an entrepreneurship.
I was to say, like, that's kind of been the common theme of, as we've invited others to, talk through it, meet us where we're at, they've said, don't get off the ride.
Yeah.
If you get off the ride, you cannot know your outcome. You
Right.
cannot, get back on. It's just what it is. And so it's it's that reminder to say, stay on.
Yep. The highs are high, the lows are low, but you just you have to ride it out.
Yeah.
Agree.
And what is in the future for DriverDOC? Where is your business, or where do you hope to see your business in the next 5-10 years?
So I think really, fulfilling that need in the space of, really true information exchange, right, between all parties in the supply chain. I would just say, if I look at tangibly, that's the way I look at things that have happened and where things will probably mirror that in the future is in transportation, like railroads. When they deregulated railroads in the 1980s, there was hundreds of them, and now there's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And you only get real good supply chain capability and visibility and solutions in that kind of system and minimal players. And so I look at that's exactly what the airline industry did. And now there's fewer than there ever were. And so I do believe that with 560,000 companies around, and as autonomous vehicles and that type of technology starts to inhibit and allow for more true efficiency, you'll start to see this larger play of less players. And I would hope to say that whether we're a part of one of those 4 or 5 players left, or we're maybe a supplier of autonomous equipment, but really, in the mix of providing true pure quality data to the supply chain.
Absolutely. Well, Josh and Julia, thank you so much for joining us today and kind of telling us all about your entrepreneurial journey. And I can't wait to see where DriverDOC is in the next 5-10 years. Tell us your website. Where can people learn more about you?
DriverDOC.io is our website.
Okay.
And you can follow us and see more about us on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a great day. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the roller coaster ride.
Yes.
Thanks.